You set out to do, as we know, a video journal or a documentary about your personal search of others with the same rare disability that you have, but you kind of, like oftentimes in documentaries, ended up doing something more than that, one might say, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like, it was a journey, as documentaries and sort of video journals often are, but it also was kind of a love letter to disabled kinship and disabled pride. It was about ableism and, about living in a disabled person in a non-disabled world. But it was about self-love and camaraderie as well in the end. But let's rewind a little bit. What was the original concept and how did it change?
Yes, thank you. The original concept, it was kind of vague in a way. I knew that I wanted to communicate the experience of living in a very unusual looking body, and I knew I wanted to talk about ableism, but I didn't even know that I was going to be the main character initially. I knew it would be driven by my sort of personal search, but I thought it might be more about the people who I meet along the way, which of course it is about them as well. But it wasn't until I got pregnant that it became such a personal film. And then I really leaned into that and I realised that it being so personal is really what gives it the edge over other sort of disability-led films, I guess, or disability, documentaries. Yeah.
So you filmed over. By the way, I think you can hold the mic, right? If you're more comfortable, just taking it in your hand, as you wish. Yeah. So there is a bunch of material you were filming through the pandemic over 4 years or so. Would you tell us a little bit about the team with whom you worked, and how did you choose them? And
yes, the team were truly, truly amazing, and I feel like it was just so serendipitous. I've never sort of gelled with a filmmaking team so well. This is my first feature, but I've made shorts before. So I found my producer first, Janine Marmot, who isn't here but is amazing, and I found her after I'd got some development funding from the BFI after I applied. And they sort of set me up with her because I was basically brand new to the industry. I didn't really know who would produce a feature for me. And so they suggested a few different producers and I met with a few different producers and I just felt like she, in some way, just really got it, really got me, really got what I was trying to say. So that was that. And then I met Anne-Marie Verco, who was my cinematographer. And she was like just a local cinematographer, but she's incredibly experienced. And again, it was just really an instant connection that we had, and especially because I was pregnant at the time and she'd got kids. And I don't know, we just really clicked. Rachel Roberts was my editor, she was Scottish. And that was it, like mainly, those are the people who I was working with really closely. There was not a big film crew or anything like that. It always felt really tight and, yes, like I was with family.
Was it a conscious choice because there were predominantly women in your team?
Yeah, it wasn't a massively... I mean, yes, it was a conscious choice, but it wasn't... I just went with who felt right for me, and naturally I do feel more comfortable with women.
Right. Well, then the film was finished. By the way, did you take maternity leave whilst filming?
No, I didn't, but at the same time, I wasn't doing anything else, so just filming stuff for this film didn't feel like a proper and serious job.
Yeah. So as seen, it is a very personal, very intimate home videos of your magical childhood, or magical-looking childhoods, and then evolving from there. What was it like to then send it out to the world, something so personal?
Yeah, it's been really, really, mind-blowing. It's still surreal. I'm still absorbing it. I don't think I really clocked that it was going to be seen by quite so many people until it was at Sundance. Even when I was accepted into Sundance, I was so happy, but it just didn't hit me. And then since getting reviews and also just audience feedback and stuff, I'm like, okay, you all know really quite a lot about me.
Indeed. They all knew so much about you before even having met you or even watched the film. So yes, indeed, it premiered at Sundance at the World Documentary Competition this spring. And from then, it has been traveling quite a lot in the world. Where have people seen it? On major festivals?
Yeah, festivals at the moment, it's been all over the world, and I haven't been to all of them, but CPH Docs, it's been to Thessaloniki in Italy, it's been to a festival in Japan, which I've forgotten the name of, it's been to Hot Docs in Canada, it's been all over the place, and I've been with it a little bit, but not all the time, because I've also got River to look after.
Yeah, indeed. And what has the audience response been, both from disabled or disability community and non-disability community?
So the response from the non-disabled community has been, I've heard people say that it's been really eye-opening, which is really good feedback for me. I wanted it to be eye-opening for people who don't think about disability in their daily lives. I really just wanted to humanize disabled people with this film, and so that's great for me. If people say, yeah, I'm seeing disability in a different way now, that's amazing feedback. And from the disability community, I was so relieved that it's been good, because I really didn't know. For various reasons, I think in some ways this film is quite basic for disabled people. Like, I'm saying what's very obvious to us all, which is that, like, we're fine as we are. We love ourselves. Like, we are valid human beings. But the feedback has been really, really positive, and that people have told me that they feel really, really seen, and that they've never felt so seen, and that they I've had a lot of people just saying thank you for saying that we don't need fixing. So it's been a huge relief, because I was worried it was going to be a bit too basic for people who already politicise disabled people. But I wonder if it's the sort of vulnerability in my film that really speaks to disabled audiences. I don't know. But anyway, I feel fantastic.
I think it's, and you should. I might add that in addition to that, I think it speaks to all people that have a sense or experience of some kind of otherness or some kind of outsider feeling, which then, if you think of it, probably includes majority of us. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Have you heard anything similar?
No, I really do agree, and yes, I have. I think this film, I totally made it for people who feel marginalised in any way, or not even marginalised, but just feel other personally. I really wanted to get that balance right of speaking to the wider community. I wanted it to be universal, and I agree. I think that everyone feels other on some level, so I'm glad that you feel that I got that right as well.
Great. So, well, you already mentioned that a great feedback has been to hear that it's been eye-opening. Well, documentaries very often have the power to raise awareness and also be a driver for change. Is there something, or what kind of impact do you think the film might have?
I really, really just wanted to humanise disabled people with the film. Again, I know that sounds basic, but that was always my goal. I just wanted for people to get to see disability as something that's worth celebrating, and see our community for the beautiful community that it is, and not just inherently think that it's a sad topic. We don't talk about disability, it's sad, and disabled is a dirty word and all that stuff. That's really all I was trying to say with my film, and people have been trying to say that for decades, but I don't think that it's been heard enough or taken in it to the level that I wanted to. So I really hope that this film is groundbreaking.
Indeed. And you do highlight the representation and the stereotypes also in the clips that we saw from the 60s, or the BBC clips from interviews. Really the gut-wrenching footage of Kevin as a child. May I just say, on behalf of all, I believe, thank God you found him. and that we could see that he's doing well and to meet his lovely family. Have you heard that feedback from others as well, or?
I've definitely heard that people love Kevin, yes. Kevin's the best.
Indeed. Okay, so, expanding on this to the topic of representation and sticking with the stereotypes discussion, you also make the reference to the 1932 Todd Browning film Freaks, which is also showing or screening at this festival. Films and media, it has a lot of power in sort of molding our subconscious and our sort of attitudes and everything. We all know this. I have to take a little advertisement break because right after our chat here, there is going to be a documentary called Code of the Freaks, directed by Salome Chasnov, which really explores the history of disability and representation in cinema. And boy, does it really highlight the Hollywood sort of cliches and empty narratives and all that. What, in your opinion, should be changed and how in the industry, and what needs to happen so that media and entertainment and sort of also other industries to improve representation?
Yeah, that's such a big question, and I definitely don't have a very clear answer because ableism is so deeply embedded in our culture. I'm ableist all the time without meaning to be. I personally feel that as a disabled director, it's not a terrible time to be trying to make films. I think that people are talking about disability at the moment, and it's definitely in the zeitgeist, and that's exciting. And I'm really going to ride that wave for all I possibly can. But yeah, I talk about it a bit in the film actually, but when I was starting out in the industry and I was thinking, okay, how can I make it as a film director? Shall I try and work my way up? I'll get a job in production or whatever, which I did manage to do. But then there was,
what happened? What happened there? Would you mind sharing? Because you did mention that the experience wasn't really that great.
It was just, I've done various production jobs that were just so demoralizing. First of all, it's completely inaccessible. If you're working in TV or whatever, then you've got this sea of trailers with steps to get up to. That's just completely the norm, obviously. That's just one thing, is that it's inaccessible. But also I really found attitudes, just the way that I was spoken to. People assumed that I was on a job placement, that I wasn't being paid, and it just feels like such an ableist industry, but perhaps less so if you somehow manage to just direct. So I eventually managed to make some short films and then have made this, and now I plan on world domination, so.
Excellent. But, you're all set, you're on the path, I'd say. But, well, as an artist, what type of themes and topics would you like to explore in the future? And, well, this takes me to the question, what are you working on next or currently?
I always want to work on films with disabled characters at the core, definitely, but not even from an activist point of view. Let's say that somehow ableism is cured in the next 10 years, I still will always centre disabled characters, because to me that's my experience, that's what I know the best, and that's more interesting and unique, I guess. So currently I'm working on my first fiction feature, which is a historical drama about the life of a court dwarf in the 1600s. So he lives in the palace with the king and queen, and it's his journey to overcoming his own internalized ableism and finding community within the court fools of the palace. So it's really different, and it's really dramatic, and it's crazy, but similar themes. So I think always the same themes. I think my work will always be about ableism.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Thank you if you set out to do that. I ran through my list of questions, so I think it's time to open the floor to the audience. Any sort of feel free comments, questions, and you can also ask them in Finnish if you're more comfortable that way. Yep.
Voitko tulkata? Juu. Kiitos koskettavasta elokuvasta. Olin valitsemassa sitä.
Thank you for very touching film. I was one of the members of the selecting committee.
Ja tästä tuli lempielokuva minulle ikinä.
And this became my favorite film of all time.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
I'm going to cry now.
Me too. Yeah, any other? Yes.
You come from Sussex, based on a film. In what way do you feel perhaps Brighton as a centre has enabled you to be more diverse in your thinking potentially?
Thank you. That's an interesting question. I wasn't expecting to have a Brighton-related question. I live in Brighton. I come from Norfolk. But yeah, I've lived in Brighton for the last sort of 5 years. I don't really know. I guess, I moved to Brighton because it is quite an accepting place and it's very, lovely queer community there. I think, I feel accepted there. I feel fairly comfortable going out and about. So I think that must have it must have had an impact on how confident I feel in creating the work that I want to make and stuff.
This is Finnish audience for you. They are appreciating you in silence. Yes, rouva punaisessa. Jo.
Do you know what's the situation in Finland about the rights of disabled people? When was it taken away?
Oh my God, I have absolutely no idea.
I'm thinking about her, Rashida, because you mentioned that it was really awful to hear about how restricted lives the rest of people in wheelchair and have disabilities.
Yeah, I don't know. What?
In Finland too, somewhere, but I don't know the history.
I'd love to know, and I don't know. I'm really bad at geography, I'm bad at history, so...
Yeah,
but I really want to know. If someone can educate me, that would be amazing at the meet and greet.
Onko siellä vastaus vai kysymys? Okay. I'm just going to answer the lady in purple that revealing my ignorance, I'm not entirely sure about the dates, but I guess overall Finland has a sort of general sort of false reputation of things being overly well, but there is an ongoing debate and a very accurate one, or a very timely one, about sort of disability law, that what it should entail and all that. I'm sure there are in the audience people who are much more knowledgeable about that than I am. I apologize for not being able to throw the year now. But yes, there was a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in your. I have actually two questions. How could you talk about how you switched from documentary to fiction, and then why did you want to place the fiction in historical age?
Thank you. So I've made a few short films, and most of them have been fiction. It really is my first love. I think the reason that I made a documentary first, well, there's various reasons, but first of all, I do think it's probably easier and cheaper to make a documentary.
Well, definitely comparing to an epoch, so historical.
I know. But I also sort of thought, okay, I've got this story to tell, and I kind of want to get my story out there, and then move on to what I really want to do, which is writing and directing. I feel really excited that my fiction feature is going to get made. I'm working with the producer, Janine Marmot, who produced my documentary. So a huge part of it is making those very important connections in the industry, I think. And why historical? I don't know, because I don't, like I just said a minute ago, like I really don't know anything about history. I really don't know anything. Like all I have is like my big heart. And yeah, it's true. And I was just reading a little bit about this man who my main character is based on, who was a real court dwarf and an artist in the 1600s. And I was reading about him, and suddenly the story just came to me, and then I just wanted to tell his story. So it's really just a coincidence that it's historical drama. I don't even know.
Well, I might add that you were selected already back in 2020 by Screen, the magazine, as the star, or shortlisted as the star of tomorrow, right? So you were recognized, your talent as a filmmaker was recognized already back then, before the documentary, for your shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, please.
You mentioned that you find yourself, I don't know if you said thinking, but ableistic, seeing yourself, the world through ableistic, in an ableistic way. Can you explore on that one?
Okay, sure. I mean, I don't think I am a very ableist person, as people go. I guess I just meant we're all guilty of it because it is so deeply embedded in our culture. But when am I ableist? Well, for example, I mean, me and Naomi, my friend who you see in the film, we've had loads of moments where I've offended her by being ableist. Like, she has dyspraxia, so she's quite clumsy. And sometimes she like stomps over to me, and then I might flinch because I'm worried she's going to trample on me. And the same thing happens with me with other people. Sometimes people like flinch out of the way when I'm coming close to them. And so Naomi gets really upset by that. She's like, "You just flinched. Like that's so painful for me because people always flinch when I'm galumping towards them." So anyway, it's the microaggressions. I'm ableist in a very in a way that I'm not aware of. But it's little things like that. I think it's natural, and like I say in the film, it's what you do next that matters. It's when you sort of realise, oh, I've just been ableist. What do I do next? So I definitely make a huge effort to correct my ableism.
Yep.
You said something about Picard, and what I found extremely beautiful on this film was like really this thing that it's about you and your mind, and what you look, what you represent, and all these stupid stereotypes in this world. I love the doctor who said that there's what's normal, because here in Finland we talk a lot about racism and how people are discriminated because they look different. And we should all are a bit different. So it was so amazing film about the big heart, how we all could grow our hearts a bit bigger, and it makes a big difference in this world.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice.
So for the audience that is possibly watching this afterwards, there was not a question from the audience. It was mainly praise. Yes, I only now realized that probably the screening or the video recording is not catching all the questions or comments, so I might be repeating if there are still any questions or comments. Mm-hmm. Stripy shirt lady.
Kysyn suomeksi, koska tämä on hankala kysymys kääntää. Työskentelen paljon keskittymisvaikeuksissa ihmisten kanssa, ja esimerkiksi tänään juuri tuli hirveän surulliseksi yhden ihmisen kanssa siitä, että hän on niin vaikea sietää siettymiä, että hän putoaa keskustelusta koko ajan sen takia yksinään.
On vaikea sietää
Siettymiä.
Mm-hmm.
Yhtäkkiä puhutaan jostain syöllisestä asiasta, ja sitten on ollut sopia hänen kanssansa aikoja. Ja se siirtyminen on vaikeaa, että hän putoaa keskustelusta pois, ja hän on yksinään, kokee yksinäisyyttä. Niin, käännätkö sen siitä sitten kysyn?
Yes. So for background, the lady's telling us that she works with a person with ADHD, sort of focusing attention problems, and she or he struggles. You know, we spoke that we don't have a third pronoun for him or her, so he or she struggles a lot with the sort of when the conversation takes a turn, when you speak of and you switch gears and you're discussing a topic, and then you are supposed to be maybe agreeing upon something.
Ja ei voi keskittyä, eikä pysty keskittyä siihen painokseen, ei pysty seuraamaan se keskustelu.
And he or she struggles with the switch and cannot focus on the topic as well.
Ja voisi vähän niin sitä kehitellä teemaa eteenpäin, että mikä on niin surua siitä, että joku tilanne oikeasti haittaa elämää ja mikä on toisaalta eettismiä.
So she was wondering if you could maybe elaborate or explore the topic of what is ableism in this context and what is kind of just the pain of not being able to follow. Am I translating this correctly?
Yeah, so any kind of harm which comes from your disability or from my background, these harms come from my background. How do you see ableism?
How do I see it? I think to put it in a very basic way, for me it's prejudice against disabled people. So, but yeah, it can be really subtle. And like I just said, I used the example of me and Naomi kind of upsetting each other, which can happen really naturally and with the best intentions. I think it's okay if you're supporting someone with ADHD who really struggles to concentrate, but you need to help them make a decision or whatever. It's not ableist to kind of try and direct them back, but it's how they do it. I think you need to work with the person that you're working with and, try and gauge what they feel comfortable with as a method to kind of get them back on track.
How about being, I feel sorrow because it's so difficult for her, for example, to follow conversations that it gets blocked all the time.
Yeah. Does she get lonely? Yeah, I mean, it is hard. It is hard, but also, like, the disability community is an amazing guiding light, and if she isn't already, then I would personally encourage her to reach out to other people in the community, because that's what gives me strength anyway.
What would be your advice for somebody who wants to be a filmmaker?
So what would the question, I'm just repeating the question for the streaming. So what would be your advice for a disabled aspiring filmmaker?
Yes, I guess my advice, I guess it depends in what way you're disabled, but generally I would say don't bother trying to work your way up to being a director or whatever you want to be, and take advantage of short film schemes. I don't know if there are loads in Finland. Maybe there are. There probably are. So that's how I've managed to become a director, is making short films through short film funds, and making connections through those films that have meant that I'm able to make features. So yeah, I would say don't bother trying to work your way up. Try and go straight to whatever it is you're really, really passionate about, and take advantage of schemes and hone those relationships that you make in the industry.
What would be your greetings to the Finnish film industry?
Your greetings to the Finnish film industry.
My greetings? What does that mean?
Greetings and salutations. I don't know.
Because there isn't much in Finland, disabled filmmakers or even disabled actors. So
Yes, there is a very, very small sort of presence of disabled in the Finnish film industry. Yes, good. Well, maybe I would turn it a little bit. What would you say for decision makers? Your greetings for Finnish film industry decision makers and gatekeepers, because that's what I think is maybe the actual point here.
Yeah, okay. Well, disabled people in the UK, we have a saying which is nothing about us without us, which just means what it says. So, like, we should be the tellers of our own stories. I feel that so passionately. I can't think of any sort of disabled story told by a non-disabled person that has remotely been okay in any way. So I think it's just really, really, really important to. Our voices need to be heard, and we have such interesting stories to tell, and we're so very talented. There's a whole community of talent that's not been tapped into at all.
But do you think, like, because in the Nordics, and I think it expanded also elsewhere, to start having the quotas right in terms of female-male representation as film directors and other key positions in the film industry, they had to put in quotas, which kind of felt it met a lot of resistance, and it felt artificial and whatever. But kind of, what's your take on that?
I think I'm all for quotas, to be honest. I mean, I definitely think it's complex, and one of my biggest insecurities whenever I get a job or whatever is that I'm just a tick box. But also I know I'm not really. Like, I know I'm very talented. So I think, yeah, I'm all for it in this context, in this imperfect world. I think it's good, and ultimately it's gonna, be a good thing.
I think we have time for one or two last questions, or do we? One more? One more. Come on, I paved the way for the last question. So oh yes, up there in the corner, yeah?
Well, this might be just, like the answer might be just no, but did you have some sort of, like, I don't know what it's like, sidetracks or sort of like some themes that you left out from the finished film that you like sort of worked on through the process or something like that?
Yes, thank you. That's a good question. There's loads of stuff that I left out because it was actually nearly 5 years of filming. So there's so much stuff. I don't know about themes, but definitely there's the big thing that I think is missing from the film and that I actually really regret and I wish was in there more is that you don't see me experiencing ableism much. You hear me talking about it, but you don't see it. And there are a couple of scenes that were, in earlier versions of the film, but not the finished cut, where you really see me being confronted with ableist spaces, inaccessible spaces, and also people just being very visibly awkward around me and uncomfortable. And it's definitely a regret of mine that I wasn't able to include that more.
That's the painful editing process. Thank you for that question. It was number 3 or 4 on my list, but I realized that I skipped it for some reason. Thank you. Thank you again, Ella. Thanks for coming all the way up here.
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
film. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you.